Hi. Today, I'm going to tell you about the most important book that I read in medical school that completely changed my life. I'm going to tell you about Grapes of Wrath. And I think it should be a required textbook reading in every medical school in the globe. You see, when you look at the backdrop of why John Steinbeck wrote that novel, he really was a realist. During the 1930s, the dirty 30s or the Dust Bowl 30s as it's called, the land that they were once fertile, rich, viable, they became barren and ultimately useless. Panhandle, Texas and Oklahoma, 80 years later, nothing grows there. Nothing. Why? You see, it all started by excessive plowing of this rich soil that was fertile. So what? Well, see, the excessive plowing got rid of the thin layer of grass that was containing the soulful soil, that was keeping it healthy and moist. Now, on top of that, excessive drought and poor farming method, what did it do? It turned this viable, rich soil into dirt and dust. And then there came the windstorm, and it just blew up all the dust and the dirt into the cloud. Crop production became nearly impossible. I'm Habib Sadeghi. I know one or two things about how to live inside a dust bowl body. I lived it for 21 years. And you know how it started? It started by being so rich and viable and full of life. It started by being a kid, 6 years old, playful. I was running around. And then I slipped. And it was a slip that literally pulled me inside this big, giant bucket of rice water that was boiling. By the time that my great-great-grandmother, and I love women, now you know why, she saved me by pulling me out of the pot, it was a second or two too late. I had over 35% of my body, third-degree burn. I ended up in a burn unit for over 6 months of my life. When I was released, the doctors, and they did an amazing job, they took care of me, what they saw. They scrutinized and took care of this wound. That's where it was, on the left side of my body. When I was released, they told my dad, if you want your son to get really well and the wound to heal up, feed him meat. My dad loved me, and just like any other father, that's what he did. He would come home and he would make a greatest steak. But I have no clue what had happened. All of a sudden, the sight of seeing that steak made me nauseous. To my detriment, my father was a little bit enthusiastic, borderline pushy. He would force me to eat this steak. I felt nauseous, and I would throw it up. I had absolutely no clue what was happening. You see, no one actually came down where I was and said, how are you doing? Do you know why we're feeding you steak? Do you know what's happening? No one did. But life is great, because the answer and the remedy came when I was second year medical school at the age of 27. It came one day. I was examining myself, and lo and behold, I found a lump. a lump that would be diagnosed to be testicular cancer. Wow, testicular cancer. The physician said, you know, everything slowed down from that moment on. I felt broken. Somehow I felt like I was less of a man. I felt tainted. When I got in the car and I was driving back, I felt like I was 6 years old in that burn unit again. Driving, I became homeless because I couldn't go home. I couldn't tell my mom and dad that I have cancer. Well, I sure knew that would just do them in. So what does any good medical student do? Goes to the anatomy lab. And that's exactly what I did. Walking into the anatomy lab, I don't know if it was the overwhelming emotion, feeling like I was gonna die, or the stench of the formaldehyde. But I'll remember my eyes had welled up, and there was an angel. My anatomy partner, Gary Ruelas. You see, today is Gary Ruelas' birthday, and I'm dedicating this inspiration that I'm bringing forward for you in place of humility to him. He was my angel. He looked at me and he says, "You're not doing well." I said, "Gary, I was just diagnosed with cancer." He said one of the most profound things to me, ladies and gentlemen. He said, "Let's go get lunch." We went across the street into this Mexican restaurant. I sat there. He looked at me and he said, "How are you feeling? How are you holding this?" And I just started telling him that I felt like there was this elephant sitting in my chest. My mouth was dry. I had no hunger. I didn't feel hungry. With his piercing eyes, it's as if he came in and he said, "Habib, I don't know the God that you believe in, but the God that I believe in is a loving God. He who hasn't loved hasn't known God yet, for God is love." And then he came deeper and he said, "You're gonna be okay. I don't know exactly what that means, but you'll be okay." Dear God, what happened to me? The elephant just flew away. My mouth was watery. I got my zest libido back. I actually raised my hand to get the waiter to come in because I wanted to order. Ladies and gentlemen, I ate not one, but 3 fish tacos. Going back, I just knew that if they wanted to take not only one, but both testicles, I was gonna be okay. That conversation changed my life. I took a year off of medical school, sabbatical, and I started looking at it. What happened? How could I be here, contracted, completely diseased, dirt, I'm gonna die? Within a conversation, I got my moisture back, and I'm like, I'm gonna be fine. So I spent a whole year studying this. You see, Gary contained my emotion. Wilfred Bion came forward as a psychologist with an incredible idea. This is what he came forward with. He coined a terminology, container contained. According to Bion's theory, every element of thought or emotion has either a projective, masculine component or a receptive, feminine component. So when someone is angry, hurt, fearful, all they need is someone who understands. And when the container is there, the cycle of emotion is complete. That's what I didn't have in that burn unit. They fed me steaks and they took care of the wounds, but I had scarred up. I had created this keloid because no one could contain the hurt, the fear inside. Over 21 years, I was dealing with depression, anxiety, and it pushed me into this place of withhold, and I didn't tell anyone about what this older relative had done to me. That's why I got cancer. One day, I just got it. how I felt neglected, bad. God was going to punish me. My sexuality was, ugh. It all turned or contributed in one way or another in this lump. So I found a woman oncologist that was heart-centered, that could really contain me. Kim Margolin, City of Hope, Doherty, California. Bless you. And then I started doing things. I slowed down to be able to go within faster. I started paying attention to what I put inside my mouth. I started noticing what are the ways that I've been farming poorly in my mind. What are the ways that the thin layer of grass was ripped off from my wound and I lost my moisture. I lost that healthy, soulful soil of consciousness, the terrain of my consciousness, where all these misinterpretations, misunderstandings came in. I started misusing my energy. For 21 years, I had taken one step forward and 5 steps back. I'll take 3 because I don't know what's behind me. Oh, we have enough space. You see, I started working with it. I started doing something called PU12. Sounds interesting. It stands for Purge Emotional Writing, 12 minutes a day. What does that mean? I started learning to do what Gary did out here for me, to contain my emotion inside. Because I knew that ultimately I had to do that for myself. I had to do that for myself. Self-containment. I had to go from this dirt, diseased, depleted, dried up dust into this incredible, rich, soulful, moist soil of consciousness that anything was possible. I had to experience the essence of grapes of wrath. I had to understand what he was talking about, that you can get pain and suffering and turn it into the sweetness of grape. And it's only possible within, through self-containment. And it was incredible. When I went back at the end of my sabbatical to medical school, things were different. I was calmer. There was no misuse of my energy. I was a lot more consistent. I was so incredibly impeccable with my thoughts because I knew that thoughts have power. How do I know that? Because as I was going through my process of checking my blood for tumor markers and doing my routine every 3 months of CAT scan with contrast and without contrast, I had them look for cortisol. My cortisol level started dropping. Cortisol is what I was producing, and I was a master at it. It puts you in a fight or flight response. As cortisol was dropping, I was producing a higher level of immunity. The natural killer cells were going up. As I was producing less cortisol, the adrenal glands were producing more testosterone. So all these atrophied muscle that I had lost because I had less testosterone being produced by the one missing testicle, they were coming back. It was as if I was shifting and changing and sculpturing my body mindfully, self-contained, and it was unbelievable. It took me in places where I could actually understand what it means to love. I started letting the thick layer of ice that was holding around my heart melt. I forgave my father because I realized, given the givens, he did the best he knew, and he's alive and I love him. I started forgiving the people who had done things, and I just let it go. I started developing this incredible, rich soil that anything is possible in it. That all you got to do is pay attention and not lose that thin layer of grass. That thin layer of grass that keeps the moisture and healthy soil inside. It took me into this incredible marriage. I found my soulmate. I was told I would never have a baby, and going to fast forward. Those are my left testicle, the remainder of it that I keep. And all of a sudden, we were gifted, my poet, my prophet, Hafez. I love this picture. We took this picture when I was getting a fellowship a year ago. Whoa, what was the fellowship about? You see, I thought I had it all figured out. This whole process of self-containment and what to do and be mindful and slowing down and, developing farming techniques of my consciousness and the importance of the moisture and creating a cathedral within where light could come in, where I could experience the communion with the divine and to choose and take steps from there. And then a year ago, my wife and I, we were gifted with a second pregnancy. Whoa. It was great until the plowing started again. Leave it to life. You see, we were told that there is something definitely wrong with this pregnancy. And there are 1 in 40 chances that the pregnancy is not going to be all kosher and it's not going to be really good. You might want to terminate. Wow, can you imagine that? We were sitting there and I was holding in the loving and I was listening to my beloved. And this is what I saw. I saw my son in our backyard just going for it and diving into the pool of life, knowing that he was okay. I brought it forward, and my wife and I, we decided, what if we could let go, and what if we could trust the light within to bring forward all that which is for the highest good and everyone concerned. It completely shifted everything, brought us closer, and on September 13th, Friday, September 13th of this year, Hannah, the gift of God, ladies and gentlemen, was born. Absolutely. You see, when you create a perfect soil within the consciousness, perfection occurs. And that's what I'm here to share with you. It has made all the difference. I had incredible heart-centered medical team, but I also went within and I started doing things specifically. That allowed me to turn the disease, dirt, depleted into a soulful soil which is moist. And in that soil, where there is composition, decomposition, where in the top layer of the soil, there's far more microorganisms than the number of galaxies and the stars on the planet, anything is possible, including placing a seed that will give you a vine and eventually grapes of self-healing. Every moment of my life, this is what I share with anyone, including my patients, that at every moment, we have a choice. How do you choose? Because far more is the importance of how we choose to relate to the issue than the issue that's coming forward. Thank you.